Hey everybody, what's going on? I'm back with a second video, and I'm talking about it's imperative that all of us right now try to do everything we can to save as much money as possible. This is a follow-up to my previous video that I did regarding Doge, them being on fire, and I also talked about how I was able to save $15 a week. You spread that out over a year, it's about $720, and you multiply that over 10 years, about $7,200 by going to the Amazon location and actually pick up my groceries versus having them delivered. So what I want to talk to you guys today about is another example of how government inefficiency benefits businesses and how they capitalize on it. I got a story I want to tell you guys about that. But most importantly, I want to talk to you guys right now about how I was able to save money. This is almost about the same amount of money, if not a little bit more than what I talked about previously. So I encourage all you guys to take the time to look and see how much you're paying for your insurance. I was paying originally when I lived in California. Actually, you would think leaving from California, coming out here to Richmond, my insurance costs would actually decrease. It actually increased. And so my insurance cost for a year for full coverage on my car that I had was roughly $1,720 a year. So I got billed every 6 months. I went ahead and paid it. I took the time when I got here and I switched over to Richmond, Virginia as my address, my insurance went up. I was like, man, this is kind of crazy. It went up a couple $100 every 6 months, which works out to be about $400 extra a year. And I didn't even have a car out here in this area. And so my insurance costs now went from $1,720 when I shopped around and went online and I looked. My insurance cost now for a whole year is $802. So I went from $1,720 a year down to $802 for the same basic coverage, the same limits, the same liability coverage, all that as well, just by getting online and spending about 2 or 3 hours shopping around, answering some questions, and here I am saving that money. So it works out to be about $918 a year in savings on my insurance. Crazy. And if you multiply that out by 10 years, that's like $9,180 savings. Now, what can you do with essentially $9,200? Crazy, crazy, crazy. So I encourage all you guys, as we try to look at trying to lock things down and try to save money, to go ahead and at least call around and see if you can get a better deal on your car insurance. Now, let me get back now to the whole Doge is on fire thing. So the Elon Musk and his crew of youngsters are out there hitting the government really, really hard. And I feel for everybody right now that's getting affected completely. But like I said, you got to do everything you can right now to try to save money as much as possible. And I talked before originally about what I saw when I was out there auditing and going out to the USPS Material Distribution Center and what I saw. And I'll tell you, there on the flip side of government propping up the economy, there's also businesses that benefit from having governmental funding. Now, I'll tell you guys a story about when I used to work for one of the, this is early in my career, when I worked for one of the large CPA firms. And like I mentioned before, when you are working for one of the firms and you're not necessarily one of the chosen few, you end up doing a lot of the work that nobody else wants to do. So I ended up doing a lot of government work. I spent time working in my first year for the city and county of San Francisco. I was on the audit team for that. And the way that these things are structured when it comes to audits, and this is kind of letting you know how inefficiency is oftentimes awarded. So when you're working on a team that does the city and county of San Francisco, so we were actually at the controller's office in a really, really large building in the rotunda. It was a very nice engagement. I really enjoyed going there and all that. And thinking about this whole engagement gives me some other stories I want to tell you guys later, but that's another time. And so when I was here auditing, this is like my first job out of college. And so there's levels to the game when you're dealing with auditing as far as hierarchy. On the top, you're going to find the partner. Underneath that, you're generally going to find the senior manager or the manager. They're going to be responsible for the audit. They report up to the partner. Then you're going to usually have a senior that's going to be on the team, the senior staff. And so then you're going to have the junior staff or the staff accountant. So when you come in, you don't really have any experience. You're going to always come in as the staff accountant. You report up to the senior. Senior usually stays with you on the audit engagement. They answer to the manager, and the manager answers to the partner. So one day when we were there, the partner was there, the senior manager was there, the senior that is in charge of me was also there, and I'm there also as well. And then in my first year, one of the things that you get stuck doing a lot is getting coffee, getting food, making tons of copies, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so what I had to do was, I had to do a lot of that stuff. And so I had to add, and this was like back in 2001 or so. And so Excel was not necessarily as popular as it was, but a lot of what we did was we would take the CAFR, which is the Consolidated Financial Statements for the city and county of San Francisco. We'd go through and add up, and we'd test different numbers in there and stuff. And so we would run a tape. And so it was very, very inefficient. But the one thing I want to talk to you guys about when I was there, and actually, like I said, when you run a tape, it's very inefficient. You're on the adding machine, beat the numbers, running a tape, and then you have to run it again. So I was like, why would we even spend time like running this stuff over and over and over when we could just use Excel? So I would make mistakes when I was running the tape, so I would just go ahead and just use Excel. But that's not what I'm talking about here. So one time, the partner came out on the engagement, and the partner, and so we're in this very, very large rotunda. The partner's in the office, the senior manager is sitting in the cubicle, the senior is sitting in the cubicle, I'm sitting in the cubicle, and it's very large. You can hear the sounds bouncing off the wall. I hear the partner come out of their office, and they go to the senior manager and say, hey, I would like to have a copy made of this particular item. So the senior manager goes, okay, no problem, not an issue. And I'm like, I know what's gonna happen here. So the senior manager grabs the paper, he sits there with it for a minute. I can hear him. He stands up and walks over to the senior and says, hey, senior, can you go ahead and take and make a copy of this document and give it back to me as soon as you can? And this person says, okay, perfect. They sit there for a second, they look at the document. I can hear the person get up and walk around to where I was sitting at, and they walk up to me and they hand me the document and say, hey, could you go ahead and make a copy of this document for me? And I'm like sitting there laughing and cracking up, but I'm got a very straight face. So I go over to the copy machine, make the copy, bring it back, and drop it off with the senior, following the chain of command. The senior says, thank you so much, appreciate it. They take a look at the document, and then they review it, then they stand up and they walk it over to the senior manager. Then the senior manager turns around and says, thank you for the document. You can hear them reviewing it. They get up and then they walk into the partner's office and say, hey, here is the document. So, I realize that we have to have a certain amount of auditors on the engagement, but it's very, very inefficient, because you figure the partner can just walk over to the copy machine, which like I did, and just make a copy of it real easy and walk back. So, and my point is, oftentimes when there's government inefficiency, it also creates inefficiency within the corporate realm. And this is a complete example of something like that was happening. So what would have been a better thing to do? Like I said, the partner would get up and go make a single copy of, and I can understand if it was like hundreds of pages that need to be copied, yeah, push all that stuff down. But if just a single document need to be copied, in the sense of efficiency, it makes sense to go ahead and just make that copy yourself. So in the end, guys, my only advice to you is, when the government is inefficient, corporations are inefficient. Now that the government is trying to be more efficient, it's going to affect everybody at the government as well as at corporate jobs. So, like I said, continue to brace for impact. Try to save as much money as you can. Cut your cost. As this is just a simple example of what I did to cut my cost. But like I said, it's getting, after making that last video, it ran away on YouTube. I think I picked up about 30 or so new subscribers. But brace for impact, continue to save as much as you can. And I've got some more stories coming your way. So sit tight and take a deep breath. Like I said, brace for impact. Things are going to get a lot worse.